on computer. What is this crazy thing? All these wonderful pages. Do any of us want to know? That's called an abstract of title. We don't use those anymore unless you're in Iowa. We have a thing that's called title insurance. What is title insurance? So I've got Rebecca here today with me, and she's with Continental Title. And we're going to talk about that crazy thing called title insurance. So this is Cindy DeCiani with the Cindy D team. And here we go. Rebecca, enlighten us.
Enlighten us. Title insurance. What that is as a title company, when we get an order in, we actually search the property from the beginning up until the sale. So we go back and we make sure that all liens have been taken care of, all interest of every party has been taken care of. If there's anything that comes up, we make sure that we place it on our title work and we make sure that it gets taken care of, in the sense of we will find the person. If somebody needs to deed out their interest, we will get payoffs. But the title insurance ensures the buyer, when they purchase the property, that nobody can come back and make any claims against the property. If they do, the title insurance is what goes into force, and it's called a claim at that point in time. So if something was missed or there was something that was not filed correctly, then that's what our company does. After, our underwriters will make sure that they insure the property, so the buyers have peace of mind that they don't have to worry about anybody coming back for that, saying, hey, I'm the long lost uncle.
So basically, what I hear you telling me is that title insurance protects us from today, our day of closing, backwards in time.
Correct. Yes. It's not like car insurance where, it's covering you and you get in a wreck. It's from the time you purchase it all the way back to the beginning of the property.
Right. So all these people that owned this one house over a period of, this one started back in the 1800s, you go back, and I would say you physically, but Continental Title or title company will go back and check the record and make sure there's no outstanding liens, tax things, errors, or any type of thing, correct?
Correct, yes. And so like if there was an error, like on a warranty deed, then we will actually make a requirement to get that fixed. So there's no issues when the buyer goes to sell later on. They're not going to be having to deal with, anything, just something minute that will be a hassle. We make sure that's taken care of at closing.
Yeah. I mean, perfect example, probably about 8 or 9 years ago, one of my neighbors came to me and said, Cindy, somebody's just knocked on my door and said that they actually have some rights to my house. How can that be? And that is when I had said, well, who's your title company? And he looked at me like, are you crazy? And I said, no. I said, if you had title insurance, then you should have been able to have that all cleared up, because the house wasn't an estate prior. So it was one of those things that was kind of nice, because he went back to the title insurance company and they talked it through and figured out what happened. And she didn't have any rights to it, but it was just the fact that scared the bejeebies out of her.
Yeah, that would scare me if somebody came knocking on my door and saying, you're living in a house that I'm entitled to.
Yeah, exactly. So now a lot of times people get confused because there's two different policies, correct? When it has a buyer and a seller. So
yes, there's
explain why and how that works.
Yes. So the owner's policy insures the buyer when they purchase the property, like we had just been talking about. The lender also requires a loan policy, and the loan policy is for the lender to state that they are in first lien position. Because if there is something that does not get taken care of at closing, let's say, there's a second mortgage, we pay it off, but they never release it. That second mortgage is still in first lien position. So our loan policy ensures that the lender has the first right, with that mortgage on that property.
Right. Does it cost any extra for that?
The loan policy is a simultaneous issue. So it's a flat fee on our end is $320, but it's so you're not paying for, like the owner's policy is based off the sales price. Loan policy, if it's done at the time of closing, then it's just the flat fee of a simultaneous issue on there.
Right. Because in Kansas and Missouri, we basically in Kansas City split those fees between the buyer and seller.
Yes.
Right. Which is understandable. So Okay. How long is title insurance good for?
It is good until you sell the property. So once you purchase that property, if you own that property, you have that owner's policy. It does not expire until the property is sold and deeded over to another person.
Now, if something happens during the time frame that you own it, that's a different story because it only
What was that? Say that one more time.
it's a different story when something happens like a mechanic's lien during a time that you are owner, not previous owner, correct?
Correct. Yes. So any liens that go against the property, why after you purchase it, that will not be covered on the owner's policy. So it's from the date of the sale all the way back. So anything after the date of the sale, that it does not insure that.
Yeah, which makes total sense, although nobody likes that, but it happens.
I know.
So in other
So
words,
true.
pay your bill when you have somebody fix something.
Yes, very much so. And there are people, and one thing is there are, people that can go down and file stuff against your property. So you always have to be on the.
Yeah, because for like one of the things that I've always done is on my own personal properties is when I have somebody do a major project like a new deck or new furnace and air or something, I ask them to sign a lien waiver once I've paid them. And I don't file that or anything. I just keep it in my personal file. I scan it and all that so that if something ever comes up big like that, which I would have no idea that they would have filed that on my house, correct?
Yeah, correct. Unless you're going down checking the records,
Okay.
you have no clue. Yeah, because they can just go, or if, let's say, you get the new deck and they go or file that, the county is not going to send you anything showing that. All they're doing is just going to file the record and all that. But the lien waiver, yes, that is one thing. If you do get work done, that highly suggests that because you don't want that contractor, oh, well, maybe I didn't get paid. Let me go file this just in case, to cover my basis on there. And in fact, they've already been paid and they cashed your check.
That's right. Yeah, it doesn't happen often, but
no, it doesn't.
It's just one of those things I figure always on big, big, expensive projects. I don't want to have to ever worry about going back and trying to find that check or whatever. So,
yes. And when you sell, what if that company, let's say something did get filed and you go and sell, 5-10 years later down the line, and that company's not in business any longer, to get something to release that we've dealt with that before. I mean, literally we have to go back and keep finding the people that were, on their LLC papers and then just kind of it's a long search. There was one time we had to really go back probably about 3 or 4 companies before we could get somebody and we have to get it approved by our underwriters that person can sign that waiver to release it.
Oh, see, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yep. So like if it's, kind of like that, like a couple companies back, we have to send in the LLC docs. We have to send in everything to prove that this person can sign on behalf of whatever lien was on there.
Wow. Isn't that amazing? The little intricacies that we have to think about. So, I mean,
yes,
it's just,
but that's what we're here for.
That's right. That's why we have you, to make sure that we get these things right.
Yes.
Does it matter when somebody pays off their mortgage on a house or not really?
No, not really. That's just, hey, you won the lottery, go pay that off, and then now you don't have a lien.
So make sure to get that release is filed, correct? Because
correct, yes.
Not every mortgage company will automatically file, right?
No, there's some that fall through the cracks, and it's just human nature. I mean, when you have a huge company, there are things that get missed, and we do find that. The main one is on second mortgages. When people have lines of credit, those are the ones that we always tend to find. They don't close out that line of credit. So the lender will not, on lines of credit, unless you close it out, they will not file a release. And so we've had to go back and, get the line of credit closed to be able to get the release, to be able to close on their property. So.
Right, because a lot of people have home equity line of credits, be able to, do the repairs on their homes, pay it off over whatever period of time. So yeah, wow, there's a bunch to this, isn't there?
There is. There's a lot of behind the scenes.
But that's why we need title insurance and why it was developed, right?
Yes, very much so. I mean, it safeguards you when you purchase your house, and you can have the peace of mind knowing that somebody's not coming back and somebody's not going to be making pretty much stating, hey, I got interest in this property, you owe me money, type of thing.
Right.
So
Right. It's just a covering your backside that everything was closed out and you have your interest and maybe your lender.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But one thing I do have to state on here, so there are people that purchase in their individual names, and if they deed out to somebody else and they are completely off of the deed, title or the owner's policy is null and void. So you always have to make sure that you're always stayed in title. You can deed out to a company that's in your name, but you cannot deed yourself off. As soon as whoever's insured deeds off, that's when it becomes null and void. So there's sometimes like when people will, let me deed it over to my kids, so they can make sure if anything happens to me, that will void out the owner's policy. So always make sure you stay in title.
Oh, so if a property is on a transfer upon death, deed, is that
so the transfer upon death, actually that is better to file instead of, because there are some older people that will say, okay, I just want to go ahead and put it in my kid's name so that they don't have to worry about it. That will void out your owner's policy because you're not the owner of that property any longer, according to the title records.
Right. And that's not always smart anyway. They need legal advice before they go do something.
Exactly. Yep.
Because there's so many other implications. So, okay.
But that's the only time it can be voided out before you sell, is if you deed out and you're not entitled to the property any longer.
Ah, okay. And then they go to try to sell that property. The kids take over because it was deeded to them. Do they need to get a new title insurance at that point? Or can they?
Well, at that point, you can't really get the title insurance unless you purchase it. So, I mean, if that goes through a purchase, through us and we funded everything like that. So you can't just go say, hey, I want the policy. You have to actually have money transferred over to get that owner's policy.
Unless you refinance it or something.
Well, refinancing is only for lender policies. So the owner's policy doesn't transfer over when you refinance.
Oh, I didn't realize
so,
that. Okay.
So whenever you refinance, the only policy we are actually issuing is a loan policy for the lender.
Okay. Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. See, I thought it was the whole thing at that point.
Yep.
Ah. Good.
No, it's just a loan policy. Yes. So do not deed out of your property is mainly what I'm saying on there. So you can always keep that owner's policy. And then, if there's ever anything that you're trying to get interest for somebody, if something happens, always contact a real estate attorney and they can guide you in the right direction of what you need to do to safeguard if something does happen, that it gets transferred over correctly.
Yeah, that's right. So, get the proper advice from the proper authority people. And like you said.
Yes, exactly.
So ask questions, don't just do.
Yes. Questions are a great thing because everybody's like, oh, well, that's kind of a stupid question. Nothing is a stupid question in this business at all.
That's
because there's some things that, the common, you're just common people out there. If you're not in this business, you don't know. And so that is what we're here for too, as well, like questions, because I do know them, but, people are like, oh, well, if I do this, I'm like, oh, this is what happens. This is what goes on and all that. So when people always say, I got a stupid question, I go, no, you don't. Yeah. Ask whatever you have.
When I was back in school.
If I can't answer it.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, if you can't answer it.
I'll find an answer for you or put you in the right direction.
That's right. That's exactly right. And when I was back in school, we always had this, little saying, and I know they still use it today, no question is stupid, because if you don't really know, it's the one that you didn't ask, which is the stupid one.
Yeah, and that's going to come back to bite you.
Exactly. And then sometimes people go in and say, I stop in your office all the time and say, well, what about, and it just helps us make sure. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's
I learn something new majority of the time. I mean, you always learn something new in this business. I mean, there's some things that come up that we've not dealt with before and we figure it out. And then, that is just all the, the knowledge that keeps coming. So there's things out there that we haven't dealt with that we get presented with, and we learn at the same time of, because there's sometimes can be weird situations out there. So,
it's called being people.
Yes.
Crazy things. Well, wow.
Yes, and you wonder, like, okay, what were you doing with this property? What was your intention on, because I mean, there's we've had them, where there's a couple people entitled, and they'll deed over to this person's still entitled, but then they have these people who are these people. What, you just look at it and you look at the chain of title and you're like, what was their intention? And then we have to go back and figure that out. And then,
and clean it up.
Yes, clean it up. Yeah, we have this one we just dealt with, and actually we had to search for this lady in the probate of this gentleman. It was like an ex-wife or a girlfriend or something. I don't know if they were married or anything like that. Well, it said in the probate, $7,000 goes straight to her. We've just now, I think it closed last year. We just now located her because we had to hold it, and we were going to send it to the, finally to the attorney just to put in the probate case, because if not, and they were getting ready to, I think some of the heirs of the guy that passed away was trying to come back and get that $7,000.
Of course.
But we finally, Melinda found her. So
that's what you guys are there.
She was down in Texas.
Wow.
Yep. Yes.
Gosh. See, you just never know the crazy things that come up.
You don't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so title insurance, what is it? It's a complicated answer.
Ain't that the truth?
But
that's what we're here to do, to make sure that. What was that?
Go ahead. You were here to make sure.
Oh, I was going to say, that's what we're here for, is to make sure that you have the peace of mind when you purchase your property, that you don't have to worry about anything coming back on, against the property, that you can sleep at night knowing somebody's not coming knocking at the door.
Exactly. Well, and that's why one of the things I always recommend is order a preliminary before you even sell your house. So if there is some things that you need to clean up, tax liens, past errors, whatever, you have time before that sale.
Exactly. And I do highly suggest that with any agents that are, or if you are getting ready to sell your house, you're, reaching out to Cindy and saying, hey, I want to sell my house. Get that title work ordered, because if there is, then we have time to go ahead and clean that up. And we are here to help to clean that up. That's what, we have processors. My processor is Kim, and she goes back and we figure it out. We all work together as a team to get it done. We'll have to ask questions. Okay. Do you know this information, as we're trying to figure everything out to get it cleared up if there's ever an issue. So
that's what you guys are good at.
Yes. Yeah, very much so.
Thank you for your time today. This was so helpful. And I think it was a good way for people to at least kind of have an idea of what title insurance is, and how you're protected and why we still use it, and
yes,
and why lenders insist, because really the lenders insist that everything is cleared anyway. So
yes, very much. Yeah, they want to make sure that they're in first lien position on the property. If there's anything in that way, they will not close. Like if you're refinancing, they will not close until it's all cleared up. So
right. Mm-hmm. Wow, we learned a lot today.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So thank you for your time. I so appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Let's see.